Hey everybody, it's Chris with Kerbal Space Program. This is my Hardmode Deluxe, as I like to call it, because it's a clean install and I added a bunch of mods back in and I am doing a new career mode. Now, what had happened is my original or my past install of Kerbal Space Program kind of got all messed up with the different mods, and instead of pulling them all out and trying to maintain some sense of cohesion, I just decided that it would be more detrimental than installing new and adding the mods back in slowly to make sure that they're all working. I was having some stability issues. So this is the new career mode, and it's not a hell of a lot different from some of the other ones. There are different mods, and I'm approaching it a little bit differently. And here I'm actually building a moon orbiter. Now this is a purpose-built moon orbiter. It's got science and life support enough to get us around the moon and back. So this is the rocket build itself, and it's not really. I don't have a whole lot of parts yet, but there's enough here and there of the design that they'll actually help. What I'll end up doing here is doing asparagus staging. So instead of putting 4 boosters and installing the fuel pipe from the boosters into the main tanks, what I'm doing is I'm making 2, and then what I'll do is I'll do a copy and then put 2 more adjacent to the ones that are currently in place. And what this does is allows me to stage 2 of the tanks differently. So the theory with the asparagus staging is to take in this case, it would be that there are 2 tanks with engines, and those will drain into the other 2 liquid boosters. And then those liquid boosters will drain into the main tank. So what's going to happen is as we gain altitude, we'll drop 2 tanks, and then we'll have the boosters full, and this main tank is also full. And then those remaining boosters will start burning off, but they'll keep the main tank full. And then once we get through those boosters, then we have a full main tank on the centerline rocket itself. The benefit of that is basically you can ditch weight faster, because whatever is not producing thrust is costing you delta V. So if you can drop off parts sooner, then you'll be more efficient. And in real life, I don't know if this is necessarily the way it goes. I don't know too much about rocket science, but in KSP it works very well where you can drop the weight of the booster. So even a tank that's empty with the engine and everything still weighs a good amount. So if you can ditch that sooner, then you can use your fuel more efficiently. And that's basically what it does. So, as soon as they stop providing thrust, they're completely gone. And you're not hauling half tanks, the weight of half tanks. So that's basically the theory. Now, there's a couple videos on it, and I have one up as well. But you'll kind of see how it works once we start taking off. And here's our launch, and we'll have all the rockets will be firing once I set up my. Just want to make sure I got everything going here that I want to keep an eye on. All right, so now as you can see, if you look at the fuel gauge on the left-hand side in the staging screen, you'll see that only 2 of the tanks are starting to empty, and then once those are empty, I'll ditch those, and you'll see kind of what I mean. Now we're getting rid of the tanks sooner once they stop producing thrust, so we're moving less rocket every time we stage. And here is going to be the ditch coming up in a second or 2 or 3, and there they go. Now those fall straight down, and we're working off of those 2 boosters are full, and we'll get into this. Will get us pretty much to where we want to be. It'll kind of be in the upper atmosphere. And then once these run out, we won't even need the stabilizers much anymore. Those fins at the tail of the rocket. We really won't need those. So ditching those tanks now, and we are running off a full. That center line is completely full because we've been dumping fuel into it as it's been burning it. This rocket is a little bit long, and once you get up into space here, if you don't have reaction wheels, it does kind of respond a little bit slowly. We will we might use some of this for the transfer stage to the moon, but most of this is going to be just getting us into a parking orbit, and I'll just be doing the maneuver notes here, putting us into as circular an orbit as possible. This was actually a decent ascent, so it was pretty easy to get a circular orbit. And we'll just go through, make our adjustments. And I like to grab the maneuver node and try to bring it to as close to the apoapsis as possible. And this kind of helps center it a little bit, so you can you get a little bit more of a chance to get a nice circular orbit and not kind of an elliptical, even slightly elliptical orbit. And that's just something I do. I don't know if it's right or wrong, or if anyone else does it. Now we're going to be setting up for our moon transfer. Actually, I'm sorry, we're going to be making our circularization burn into our parking orbit now. We'll use all of this fuel and this in this stage, and then we'll end up dumping off the booster section. And not that I'm really a steward of the space area. This tank will actually eventually deorbit and burn up, so it won't be cluttering the space lanes. Not like we do in real life, because if you look at the near-Earth orbit and outwards, there is plenty of junk, and I guess that probably goes back mostly towards the earlier decades of the space program, when it really wasn't thought of that these things could become deadly projectiles. They could damage things like the heat panels on the shuttle, which that did happen. Also, if you're doing an EVA and you get hit by a piece of debris that's moving at 10,000 meters per second or whatever it is, it's gonna either hurt you or kill you. Also, there's always damage done to like the space station and all that stuff, and that's some of that's man-made. A lot of it's actually from the asteroid belt, or other real space debris, not man-made. And those hazards are always there. Space is not safe, as nothing really is. I mean, you can get killed just walking out your front door, but we try to mitigate those risks, and I think nowadays the space program is more conscious of what they leave behind. But in KSP, it just happened that I did it unintentionally. Usually I have stuff floating around, and then once in a while I'll go through and I'll clear out my debris by salvaging or recalling the missions that the debris are on. Here we're just going to set up our encounter to the moon. Nothing special here. The moon is pretty easy to get an encounter of. You need about 700 to 900 at the most delta V to get there. To get back, probably 200 to 500. I've done it as low as 200. It kind of depends on where you are in the orbit around Kerbin and which direction your orbit is, because you can actually take the long way, which I did in a mission, and I didn't have enough life support, killed my Kerbal. However, I was able to transfer science or transmit science. I now have, and it's not in this video yet, but I now have installed remote tech. So you actually have to have a connection back to Kerbal Space Command, which I don't have any geosynchronous satellites yet, and I will be putting those up as soon as I get to a unmanned control unit. This Steputnik it's not very conducive to setting up satellites, because if you want to do a manned mission, you can't connect things to it and still have a decent mission. It's kind of weird. I mean, I guess I could probably try to find a design that would work. I just haven't. I don't like the Steputnik for stuff that requires manned and unmanned components. It's not an easy thing to build with. It takes up a lot of space. It's heavy, and you can only connect to the bottom of it. I haven't I don't think you can connect to the top of it, and I can't connect modules to the top like a docking port or anything like that. It's just that round section. It doesn't really do anything. Yeah, still messing with my connection, my transfer here. I don't know why it's taken me so long, to be honest with you. I recorded this about a week ago. But it was maybe some fine tuning that I needed to do. And here we go. We're going to do our transfer. And using Kerbal Alarm Clock is awesome. It keeps you from overshooting your transfer window. Because a lot of times if you force it, once you hit that transfer, the clock kind of stops. Well, the program stops, but the clock keeps going. So you could just go right off through your orbital path and into the ejection when you escape the moon without even being able to touch the thing. It's very sensitive once it does that transfer over to the sphere of influence change. Just something to be mindful of when you're getting close to that end, to that encounter with the moon. You want to scale back on your time acceleration. And if you don't have Kerbal alarm system or alarm clock, then you could have a problem. But if you do and you set it up so that Kerbal alarm clock stops you, you are awesome. It works awesome. So get it. Just do it. Here we're flying in. We're going to do our lunar or mooner flyby. I get a little bit of science. Now, I do want to land, and I just don't have the parts that I like in order to build a decent lander. I'm not the best lander designer. I can do them, but they're kind of big. I've done a very small one, but without that lander body, the really small one, it's really difficult to land a capsule on the moon and be able to take back off, because it does weigh a lot. And it's just the way it's made to fit. I mean, you can't stack it underneath the rocket. Like the capsule, you have to connect stuff to the bottom of it, because obviously the top is, you can't connect anything to it other than a parachute or whatever. But with those lander bodies, you can actually put the tanks on top, so the lander is actually lower, and you can have a good center of gravity, and it's less likely to topple over. You can put the supports out there, and it's nice. So we're just going to do a flyby here, grab some science, and then land and transmit, or actually use those research points to further my part research. Again, marching towards the docking ports, because I think those are probably one of the most important parts, because they open up a large swath of missions that you generally can't do. Because I should take that back. With vanilla Kerbal Space Program, you can't do a lot without having fuel in space. With Kerbal's attachment system, you are able to do fuel transfers on rockets without having to dock them. It is very... I've had a lot of problems with it, where the ship is unsecured and it could explode. I've had a few things explode in space. I've had a few things explode on the surface of the moon, just connecting pipes to them. And they weren't, it's not like they were in a peculiar position or any kind of dangerous predicament where they're leaning off the edge of something and the pipe was actually holding it there. No, it just, they were on the ground. Specifically, it happened on the moon, and we were on flat terrain, and I connected a pipe to a part of the complex that I was in, and it was on a landed rocket. It had legs and everything, and they were all contacted ground. But as soon as I connected that pipe, it exploded, and I don't know why. I was able to save before that happened, so I reloaded the save and tried it again in a similar area, but not the same area, and it did the same thing. It exploded. So there must have been just something wrong with the connection and how the ships were related to each other, and that it exploded. But I've also done something in space where I had something that was, it didn't have a docking port, but I wanted to transfer fuel out of it. It was something like a stage that I ditched because it was connected to a docking port, and I needed that docking port, but I couldn't transfer the fuel until the other ship was, or the other thing that was using that docking port was connected. So I used a pipe extension, and it blew up the ship that I was trying to attach to the station, and I don't know why. That one I didn't save before it happened, so it wasn't like it was a there was no Kerbals on board. It wasn't anything that had specific science on it or anything like that. So I didn't care that it blew up. It really was just a bonus to get the fuel out of it, and there wasn't much. It was probably about an eighth of a tank or something. But there's probably a couple hundred Delta V that could be used for any type of mission. So just be careful, I guess, if you're going to use Kerbal attachment system, and you put a lot of work and effort into a station or a rocket or maybe a rover or a lander, or you're making a base on the surface of the moon or Minmus or Duna or whatever. Do yourself a huge favor and F5 that bitch before you connect anything with with Kerbal attachment system, because you just never know when shit's gonna go south. And it's such a pain in the ass, especially if you have something that took a lot of effort to design, and everything worked the way you wanted it to. Excuse me, but its Kerbal attachment system decided to freak out, released the Kraken, and destroyed your creation that you spent. I mean, I spent hours on designs just trying to tweak them, get them right, and that just sucks. It's very demoralizing when that happens. I'm just messing around right now with my return encounter, and I'm not doing it very efficiently. I'm just kind of mucking around here. There are easier ways to do it, but I just happened to think I thought I was going to be okay and I could do it quickly, and it turned out that I ended up spazzing out and doing this a million fucking times. So eventually I will get back. We'll re-enter with deadly re-entry and then land, blah blah blah, and we open up some more tech nodes. My plans are to continue with these videos, and I'll try to keep them within the 15 to 20 minute range. So that's basically the end of this, and if you want to fast forward a little bit, you'll get to see the landing, or actually the re-entry with the funny fiery colors that look like they're going to destroy everything, and then the tech nodes at the end. But I'll throw some music on and let you decide what you want to do. But at the end, there are credits, and there are also my tech nodes that I display. So hopefully you'll check them out. If not, catch me on the next video. And as always, fly safe-ish.